Illinois head coach Bret Bielema still whining a month after the game is over, and they won. What in the world is going on? Plus, we have huge news from Nyck Harbor and something else to discuss about the outcome of the game between LSU and South Carolina on Friday. A lot to get to. We talk about all that and more. Locked on Gamecocks starts right now.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. Hope everyone's having a fantastic Sunday as we record this. It's Championship Sunday in the NFL, so we have a lot to get to and a lot to talk about with South Carolina athletics from all over the place. But before we do, I want to say thank you to everyone that made Locked On Gamecocks your first listen today and each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, guys, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59, the two teams that are playing in it will be decided today. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Now, like I said, we got a good show for you today. We're going to get right into it. Something I'm going to try to start doing more often. But getting right into it, Illinois head coach Bret Bielema is still, I don't think this is a cuss word, bitching and moaning and whining about the game between South Carolina and Illinois from over a month ago and the lack of respect that he's getting. I'm going to tell you right now, right off the bat, what this says to me. One, South Carolina is living rent-free in the head of Bret Bielema and Illinois fans, no matter what. And then two, I think what it means more than mostly anything, besides him being petty or sophomoric or any of those things, I think it's that he's a little bit jealous, or maybe a lot of it jealous, of what Shane Beamer has done at South Carolina. And I'll get to that in a second. But I think that where a majority of this is coming from is his own jealousy of Shane Beamer. And I know that he beat Shane Beamer. I watched it just like you guys did. I was frustrated about it. We did a whole show on it. Obviously, it was a very frustrating to the season. But hear me out here. I think one of the reasons that Bret Bielema is acting like a child at 55 years old to continue dragging this on is that he knows, just like everyone else knows, that win in the ReliaQuest Bowl, when you're missing your best two players and Nicky Manwari sits out for the second half, I think that might have been the peak of what he's going to be able to achieve at Illinois. And he knows damn well that what's happening at South Carolina, especially in this conference, is not even anywhere near peaking yet. And also, I think he's jealous of that, just flat out. And I'll get into all that. But I thought about this today because Josh Pate, we talked to him, friend of the program, Josh Pate. We always joke around about it. But I was texting the other day about Bielema going after him, because if you missed it on Twitter, which if you did, congrats, and stay off social media because it's a hellscape. But Josh Pate has these power ratings, and he's very adamant about the fact that none of the power ratings have anything to do with who are the best team, like his rankings. It's just who he thinks would be rated in a certain place based off the roster and the coaching and whatever. Like, it's much different than rankings. It's not him saying, hey, these are my favorite teams in the country. Here's who I think would win, blah, blah, blah. It's just power ratings, okay? And he brought up the fact, I think Bret Bielema got upset because when you looked at the power ratings, Illinois was not in it at all. South Carolina was 10, Tennessee was 9, Alabama was 8, Ole Miss was 7. Now, I don't know what goes into Josh Pate's power ratings necessarily. I do know that Pate is one of the most objective people I have ever met in this business. I do know that Josh Pate loves college football, and in no way is he ever trying to slight one team. Now, he might sarcastically respond to a fan every now and then, and good for him, because he gets enough crap online, as any of us do in this business, but especially him with how big his platform is. But for Bret Bielema to go after Josh Pate, call him a clown via the emojis at 55 years old is such a bad look. It's just such a bad look. And I'm looking at it right now. It says Thought today was January 22nd. April 1st must have come earlier this year. Hashtag ILL. We beat number 10 and must be just out of the top 25. And again, I have no problem with defending your team, going to bat for your team, and reminding people that, yeah, you did win that on a neutral field and on an actual football field. But calling someone a clown because they didn't rate you or put you in their own rankings or ratings in this case at 55 years old, that's about as childish as it gets. And Beamer brought this up yesterday. He had a whole conversation about this when he was meeting with the media out after the halftime of the basketball game, and he said, "Listen, we talked. We had a conversation. It was very cordial, and we agreed to disagree on a couple of things, but it was good." Here's where I keep going back to, when he first did it, the first thing that I thought of when he went after Bielema, or when Bielema went after Pate, was that scene from the movie Step Brothers when they're they're at dinner and Dale asks, he goes, "Are bonita fish big?" And they're all like looking at him. And they go, and the kid goes, "What's this guy's deal?" Like that was the first phrase that I thought of when Bielema did this. What's this guy's deal? Like, buddy, we've all moved on. Like, we have all moved on. Being upset with somebody for making power ratings that your team wasn't in, it shows you, no matter what these people say, from a standpoint of like, oh yeah, we don't care. We block out the outside noise and all that coach speak bullcrap. Clearly they don't. I mean, like, clearly they don't. So that was the first part. The second part is this. I think that Bret Bielema, where this is coming from, a lot of times when people, there's a phrase that I love. It's one of my favorite quotes, and it's from the movie American Gangster, where he says, "The loudest one in the room is the weakest one in the room." And I think there's been times when Shane Beamer has been that. I think there's times when Shane Beamer has kind of showed himself in a negative light after he overreacted to stuff. I kind of thought that at first he kind of did it at the ReliaQuest Bowl because of the massive miscommunication. Now, from what we all thought was happening and what Bret Bielema was signaling, I was all for it. You guys have already heard my thoughts on all that. But yeah, I mean, I understand like overreacting to stuff like that, but to still be talking about it a month later when you won the game, what that tells me more than anything is that Bret Bielema, when he was at Wisconsin, I remember saying this because he was at Wisconsin from 2006 to like 20. Let me pull it up, make sure I'm accurate here. 2006 to 2012. If you remember those Wisconsin teams, it felt like they had a 9-win ceiling and floor, or they had a 9-win floor every year. They were going to always have a great running back. They were always going to have a great offensive line. And every third year or so, they were going to compete for a chance to play in the Rose Bowl because this is before college football playoff. And for whatever reason, he had, I think, one of the most cush jobs in the country. Like he was perfect for Wisconsin. He fit the personality of the team. He fit the personality of the fan base. He fit the culture there. He created a lot of the culture there. But what he was going to do was sit there and say, "All right, I'm never gonna be able to compete with Ohio State and that from a recruiting standpoint, a facility standpoint, and Michigan and Penn State necessarily. But I know that we're good enough to beat them every couple of years. And every couple of years, we're going to get to the Rose Bowl, especially now when those teams are going to play for a national championship. We're going to be the second best team in the conference. We're going to get to play for a Rose Bowl. And that's a big deal for this program." Why he left from Wisconsin, who was a top 3 to 4 program in the Big Ten, to go to Arkansas, well, I will never understand it. I will never understand it. I think that he knows, and this is where this is coming from, is that he went to Arkansas and he failed. That's why he was let go on the field after they lost to Missouri in 2017. I think that he looked across the field at Shane Beamer and he thought this smaller dude, this younger guy, this guy that has like done some stuff off the field, like with the TikTok stuff and being like very okay with who he is, even though a lot of people get rubbed the wrong way about it. I think he saw that across the field and got so mad that guy is going to be a success in this conference where he failed. That's driving all of it. That's just my personal take. I think, and listen, I get it because they beat South Carolina, but I'm telling you from a internal and I hate to use this word, but like an emotional standpoint, I think he's lashing out because he knows he failed in this conference, and what he had to look across the field at is a success. It was maybe the biggest success in the conference this year. That's why he won Coach of the Year. And I think it aided him so much that it is still somehow eating at him. And he's been South Carolina, Shane Beamer, and this whole thing has been rent-free in Bret Bielema and Illinois fans' heads for a full month after the game's already played. So that is all for the first part of the show. We are going to get into some other stuff, including some really good news that South Carolina got this Sunday morning from Nyck Harbor. Before we do, I do want to tell you about our friends at TurboTax and Intuit TurboTax. So listen, one of the horrible things about football season ending is that means we get right into tax season. And taxes before was always waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. It was in waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Now taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you taxes, who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can just go about and focus on your own day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible, and file every form, every investment, everything you need with 100% accuracy. It's all so you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Remember, this is only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates are only available in the iOS mobile app, but see guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. That's TurboTax.com/guarantees. We will be right back with the second part of today's show. All right. So I don't feel like that was a super hot take necessarily. I just am so annoyed by the Bielema stuff. And I do stand firm in what I said. I do think it's from a place of jealousy, and I don't care how that sounds. Maybe I'm a clown emoji, as he said to Josh Pate. I mean, like, I just can't imagine as a head coach getting that upset about a ranking system. And I'll tell you what, the other part too, I left this part out at the very beginning of it, but I'll say it now. The person that came to his defense immediately was Danny Cannell. And anytime Danny Cannell, I love DK to death, great dude in real life, not a super fun follow for SEC fans on Twitter, but a great dude in real life. Anytime Danny Cannell, though, is the one that's immediately coming to your side in defense, maybe we rethink that. Okay, let's get to the good news that South Carolina and Shane Beamer got today, and that is Nyck Harbor. I have been so high on this kid since we started doing the show, and since, honestly, when he got on campus and committed to South Carolina a couple years ago. Nyck Harbor has made the decision that he is going to solely focus on football this spring and will not be running track. Now, let me tell you why that's a big deal. I mean, I think obviously a lot of you already know why it's a big deal. But let me just remind you of a couple things. Nyck Harbor came into this season. Let me make sure I pull up these numbers to be on the safe side. He came into last season. And he came in out of high school as the number 21 player in the country and the number 1 athlete in the country. On 3, by their own admission and their own scouting and recruiting evaluation, they said he is the most elite jumbo athlete we have ever seen. He's 6'5", he's 230, 240, whatever it is. He has been clocked at a 10-1 100-meter dash. All of you know this, and you know that he, like, the potential and the ceiling is so high for this kid. There's people going into last year that thought he still might not even be playing the right position because he might be a better defensive end than wide receiver. But when you have a mismatch like this, 6'5", 240, that can run like a deer, run a 10-1 100, it makes sense to put them at without their hand in the dirt. I will say that. Now, this season, I brought this up in the preseason. We talked about this because you wondered if he was going to make the jump. And one of the things I kept bringing up was I wasn't worried too much about the receiving core because there always seems to be some kid or some player that jumps up when you don't expect it. And what I mean by that is, like, think about Josh Vann, the season he had a couple years prior to that. I think it was 2021. He led the team in receiving, and he was he was great. The year before in 2020, where we went over these numbers, 10 catches, 88 yards. He was like 7th or 8th on the team. Then you come into the following year and he's 1st in the team. The potential for Nyck Harbor here is, I feel selfish saying this, but I think you guys will get what I'm saying. I almost don't want him to pop too much this year because I would love to see this kid for 2 more years because I think we're just scratching the surface of how good he can be. And one of the things that I think that he has missed out on most is just live reps. Like, I remember when I got to college and I was playing baseball, I remember, I mean, I could roll out of bed and hit. Like, I was a really, really good hitter. Um, and that was never going to be a problem. I wasn't the fastest. I think I ran like a 6'7", 6'8". Like I had a terrible arm and I was an okay fielder, but I could roll out of bed and hit. Um, but the thing about me, for whatever reason, when I was in high school, I just didn't play on a travel team. I didn't do any of that. I spent the off seasons like trying to work out and get faster and bigger and all that kind of stuff. So I remember when I got to college, we had junior college kids that came in and they had been playing like basically nonstop since they were like 12. Like every season was baseball season and they kept getting live X reps. Now, what I'm telling you about this is not to relive my non-glory days. It's because Nyck Harbor is a kid that like you see the potential, you see the elite athleticism, and you see where all of it comes together at times. But he just doesn't have enough game experience. Like it's a kid that just started playing football like a couple of years ago, right? And even in high school, he was a tight end and defensive end. He barely played this position. I kept saying, and I've said this repeatedly, you guys have heard me say it over and over and over again. I think one of the most impressive things from this coaching staff all season this year was getting this kid to buy into being a blocker. And that just shows you how selfless he is. This decision to be my nose is itchy, is this decision to be to let go of track this year also speaks to that. Last year, it kind of felt like one of those things like, man, no one's going to be mad at you for missing spring practice. Like, no one's going to be mad at you for trying to go chase a dream to qualify for the Olympics. I mean, I think everyone in that building would tell you without question that they were pulling for him every step of the way. And now this is a kid, again, this is not a kid that's like, yeah, I'm pretty good at track. Like, this is an elite athlete in the world. Like, there's very few people that are 6'5", 240 and run a 10-100. Like, this is about as rare as it gets. So I hope fans understand that. And I think they do. But so of course you spent last season trying to qualify for the Olympics, like as any of us probably would. But what that cost him was, the ability to have 15 extra practices at the very least, spring game, things like, just being able to understand like where you're going to fit into this offense. And again, you just don't have that much game experience. I think what we all kind of hoped what would happen is, hey, listen, this kid is a one-of-one athlete. Put him on the field, he'll figure it out. And we all kind of figured out also like that's just not the case with some people, especially in a position that's like as intricate as this, because you can't just tell them to go outrun everybody on the field. You have to learn how to run routes. You have to learn how to block on the edge, which he's done a great job of. You have to understand like just certain things. There was a lot of stuff early in the season, especially where, whether it be drops, whether it be flags. I've never seen a player get flagged for offensive pass interference more than this kid, and it's not his fault. It's SEC refs is what I'll blame that on. But he went into, I think, this season where like because of his own ability, there's this like unrealistic and unfair almost set of expectations of how good he could be. Going into this past fall, it was probably too much to think that he was just going to step in and be the guy. Now, the good news is he got so much better as the year went on. You look at like his 2023 numbers. He finished sixth on the team. He had 12 receptions, 195 yards, 1 touchdown. This year, he finished second on the team in receiving yards of 376. He had 3 touchdowns. He had 26 receptions. What was most impressive to me, and I remember I'm going to bring this up real quick, was the way he went about it, because you talk about the consistency part of it, okay? The consistency part of it, he really the catch he had in the Alabama game, where I don't know what the ref was looking at where they called it an incomplete pass, but an incredible catch in the front corner of the end zone that gives you a chance to tie it up with less than a minute to go before you recover that onside kick. That was a huge play. But you look at the consistency at the end of the year from the Vanderbilt game on. 3 catches, 43 yards, 2 catches, 69 yards against Missouri and a touchdown, 3 catches for 48 against Wofford and a touchdown. Clemson, 3 for 51. Like in the bowl game, 4 for 61. If this kid, they will continue to get him targets, and I think you already have a very deep receiving core. He's clearly the most talented physically of anybody. but with 15 extra, what do you call it? 15 extra practices, an entire offseason, like being able to watch tape and just not have your attention divided, right? Like, because I'm sure he was still a part of like workouts and doing other stuff, but like it's also a totally different thing. Like you're if you're running track, you're not probably trying to lift the same way and do some of these offseason workouts that the football team is. Um, I don't know if this is the end of his track career by any means. I hope it's not, because he is a very gifted athlete. But I do love the selflessness of him coming in and saying, listen, like out of high school, won the state championship in the 100 and 200 and set a state record for both. Ran a 10-1-1 last year, like I said. I think he ran a 20.3 or 20.5, I know, for at least in the 200. I mean, some of the numbers, even at South Carolina, it's like top 3 to 5 like fastest times of all time. And so he's a very, very gifted athlete. Being able to spend the next 9 months learning how to improve at this position and for this team, and then also get to work with guys like Mike Fury and then work with guys like Mike Shula. And then that's the other part too, is just the people that are going to be around him. Like the receivers going to be around him that have been around for a minute. Like, I mean, like Jared Brown, the kid from Parkview High School in Coastal Carolina, guy that's been in college now. He'll be in his 4th year. Being able to learn from guys like that and just learn like the intricacies of route running and all that stuff, I think that's where you're going to see the biggest difference. This is a kid who has. It's like he just, for lack of a better example, it's like he just picked up a bat and had just go up there and figure it out. Or I'd say it's a better example. It's like somebody put a ball in his hand and he could throw 100. You might not know where it's going, but he can throw 100. And now you're going to be able to work on mechanics and figure out how to get it across the plate. And I know I'm using a different sport analogy, but like I'm just so excited for this kid, what he is going to be able to do now with a full offseason focus on just football. And I love the fact that the decision was his own, and it wasn't any pressure from the coaching staff, which is awesome. All right, we're going to get into one last segment, but before we do, I want to remind you once again about our friends at FanDuel. Now, Super Bowl 59 is here. One game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, especially betting. Anybody that knows me, and we'll need producer Allie to earmuff it, but one of my favorite things, especially with our past podcasts, Super Bowl prop bets is one of the best times of year, and there's no better place to do it than FanDuel. You can bet on everything. You can bet on everything. You can bet on the length of the national anthem. You can bet on, I think my favorite all-time prop bet, and it was on FanDuel, was the year they played in Minneapolis, and the bet was will the amount of points total in the first quarter be higher or lower than the temperature outside? The temperature outside was 2 degrees. Most surefire bet of all time. You can make all sorts of bets like that. There's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action with live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place $5 down and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. Download the app, head to FanDuel.com to get started, and bet just $5. And if it wins, you'll score $200 in free bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, the official partner of Super Bowl 59. We will be right back with the final part of today's show. All right, so the final segment here, we'll be brief here, but it's something that came out, I believe it was today, and I don't like it. And I'm going to sound off a little bit. It came out yesterday. I'm going to sound off a little bit, and it's just from a place of disappointment. And it's not from the fans. It's not from anybody like that. But something took place on Friday night at the South Carolina LSU basketball game that was so uncalled for and so awful. And I hope it gets fixed. I hope there's some sort of reaction from the powers that be on this, because it really there's just no place for it. And so what happened was, listen, that entire environment was awesome, from pregame, from tip off to especially late in the game. Colonial Life was awesome. It was awesome. There's a reason why you've won 69 straight games in that building. There's a reason why you have beaten LSU for 17 straight times. But Flower J. Johnson, I want to be very clear, is not Angel Reese. Angel Reese is one of the most polarizing athletes in general across the board for whatever reason. She's been one of the most polarizing players in forever. And Flower J. Johnson's not like that at all. She might talk some trash, and she has a lot of stuff off the court that I think is awesome for her. She's been able to sign rap deals, and she's living a different college life than a lot of college athletes have lived. But she's not a jerk. She doesn't talk a ton of trash. She doesn't go out of her way to insult people or dunk on people metaphorically, and all that kind of stuff. But the DJ in Colonial Life at the game played a song by Camouflage. If you're unfamiliar with what this is, Camouflage is Flower J. Johnson's dad. He's a rapper from the early 2000s. That's a big deal for a couple of reasons. One, playing his song at the end of the game as a troll, I get it. I remember being at the NFC Championship game in Atlanta when they were playing, or it was the divisional round in 2016 when Russell Wilson was playing. Russell Wilson was dating Sierra. He's now married to her. They had a kid, Sierra already had a kid from Future, who's a rapper from Atlanta. Every time Russell Wilson took the field, the in-stadium DJ would play a song by Future. I thought it was funny. I thought it was petty and dumb, but it was also his ex. Camouflage is Flower J. Johnson's father, who was murdered in a gun, from a gunshot wound before she was born, like when her mom was pregnant with her. To do that, listen, I didn't know who Camouflage was until I read this. So that tells me that you had at least some sort of idea of what you were doing with the knowledge that of who her dad was. I don't hear a lot of Camouflage songs that are played. Maybe I'm just so out of the loop. Who knows? I haven't heard that be a part of a ton of in-stadium song lists. Maybe I'm completely wrong about it. But to play a song to troll a player from someone who was murdered before she was born is about as tasteless as it gets. That's about as tasteless as it gets. That's not trolling. That's classless. And it's really crappy. It's just really bad. It's a bad look for the university. It's a bad look for that environment. And it takes away from everything that already happened on the court for no reason. For no reason. So you could get a joke off? That's so stupid. Flower J. Johnson, she made a comment about it afterwards. She said, "I'll take my L on the chin, but this is just nasty behavior. There's nothing funny about that." The DJ doubled down on it afterwards and said, because somebody posted it, said playing Camouflage at the end of the game was crazy. She said, "My bad," followed by a bunch of laughing emojis. What are we doing? What are we doing? You've created this environment that's so good for this sport, and you could argue that your head coach and this program have done more for growing this sport than almost anyone, like ever, with how popular it's become. It's so stupid. It's just so stupid, and it's classless, and it's awful. And that's all I have to say about it. We're going to end on that note. Hope all of you have a fantastic Sunday. We're going to get ready. Producer Allie and I are getting ready to go watch the Eagles. She's a big Eagles fan, NFC Championship. Before you start your work week, I hope you, of course, make Locked On Gamecocks your first listen, but with your second listen, do me a favor, check out the squad shows. I'm not always on there, but they have a ton of fun on the SEC squad show. And if you're bored, also maybe make your second listen Locked On SEC with our buddy Chris Cordy, or Locked On Smothered and Covered with our buddy Barrett Sallee, Twitterless Barrett Sallee, who has texted me during the show saying somebody tried to hack his Twitter account. So prayers up for Barrett. Prayers up for all of us. You guys have a great start to your week. Go Cox.